Waste material is such you can't be fussy about what you get. It might not cut in the same way that you want it to.
See the smooth surface, we're going to take it and we're going to stick it on the top.
Yeah. I think that it's suddenly dawned on them that maybe their plans are a little bit ambitious.
It's got an angle like that, so when you lean back, you don't fall over.
Even the ones that weren't the winners came out with smiles, which is always good. So you've made a really conscious decision thinking about the blue and the white then, haven't you?
Yes.
You have made a conscious decision, right. My name's Patel. I'm an architect. I work for Formed Architects and Designers. We're a small little practice in West London. My history with STEMnet started, I read an article in the Reba Journal. I think the president of the RIBA was sort of asking for people to go forward for STEMnet. I followed it through, I'd heard of it before, sounded like something I'd like to get involved with as a practice. So signed up and basically here I am. If I was at school and an architect had come in and given me some insight into what architecture was about or the involvement or what different realms of architecture exist, if that's the right way to put it, then I might have had a better insight as to actually what that involves and how the construction industry works. So I thought if I could go back and do that as if it was for myself, it would be something good to give back to local schools. In my pre-meeting with Sushila, I'd like to establish what age group I'm working with, how many children there'll be in the classroom, what resources would be available to me to undertake a task of any kind. In terms of tools and stuff, are they proficient using sort of basic saws and things, or is that?
Basic saws and things, yeah, they'll be fine with.
Okay.
One of the classes will be resistant materials and the other class will be graphics.
All right, so it's a
gonna be
totally
two
different,
class-
okay, gotcha.
Two classes together.
And how many teachers would be available for the lesson as well. So it's all sort of ancillary support I have, especially if I'm looking to do quite a physical activity. I don't want to be left with sort of 20 children and everybody sort of fighting around with drills and hammers and things like that. A competition brief was put out for architects and designers to create a workshop yard using construction waste or recycled materials from construction. The competition was about 40 entries. Our entry was the winning entry. So over the course of the last year, since we've won it, we've been making the yard with various interns. And that's kind of what's led us to this place where we thought that would be a good task to take on with the students in the school. I'll be asking the students in groups to make a piece of furniture, a table, a stool or a chair, using construction waste. So being an architect, I've called upon a few builders to see if they can get me bits of offcuts of timber or any strip-out timber that they have. Having sort of experienced that construction waste and where it's coming from and how it can be reused, it'd be a nice way to take that into the schools as a snapshot of how construction waste needs to be considered or how design waste needs to be considered at any scale. Right, hello everyone, my name's Patel. I'm an architect and I'm here today to talk to you a bit about construction waste. And then hopefully through the course of the lesson we'll make something using construction waste. Coming from a creative background, I'm always very consciously aware that it's not just the pretty creative aspect that makes a building, and that there is quite a lot of thought and science and technology and all sorts of mathematics that goes into making it what it is. But conveying that can be quite difficult without it being boring. I want to start with a small presentation and I want it to be quite visually engaging, and you can't sustain their concentration for very long periods of time. But I also want them to be able to relate to it. So we can also think about making things from waste. So this is a small project that we've been working on in East London, made from construction waste. A lot of it is made from timber that's come from the Crossrail site. So does everyone know about the Crossrail train line that they're producing through London? Coming from a design background, which is what my passion is, I try and look for something that kind of bridges the design and the STEM aspect together. But at the same time, something that would engage the children. Using your design skills, start thinking about how you can design a bit of furniture, say a chair or a table or a stool. You've got effectively the rest of the lesson minus the cleaning up time to make something. And at the end of it, whichever group's got the nicest bit of furniture that is functional, will judge it and somebody will win a prize for it.
Make these closer. Yeah, that's gonna take it out.
So try and make it functional or part of the design so that you're really making the best use of all the bit that you've got. Waste material is such you can't be fussy about what you get. It might not cut in the same way that you want it to. It might split in a certain way, and how you adapt to that, or if there's a particular feature that's particularly nice about a piece of timber, how you retain that or how you enhance that through your design. How is that?
These two are going to be there where you sit down, and then these three are going to be where you sit down for people, and then this is just going to be on the back, and then we may use these like the back ones.
I'm hoping that the kids will realise that the construction industry is quite vast and the architect is one small piece in the cog. Maybe broaden their senses into actually what the architect does. You know, the fact that we think about how something is used is very different from the sort of typical image of we just do the drawings, and there's a lot more thought process and depth that goes into it.
If you buy materials, it's more expensive, and reusing materials, if you have unused materials, they just sit somewhere and then they don't get used. But if you reuse things, they can save money and time.
Probably see a combination of some unusual abstract structures, hopefully some structural pieces that will actually work. They might not look beautiful, but as long as the function's been taken into consideration, I think that's going to be crucial for them. So hopefully some good results by the end of that.
We are planning to build a bench. We are using timber. We are also using different methods to construct it and to make it stable.
The table is gonna be blue, because we are blue things, and we're taking it apart. So we could use these ones as for the legs, and we're gonna use this for the base, so it has like a sturdy base. We're gonna try and make it look quite presentable, quite neat and tidy, and hopefully it's safe for the people who use it.
I'm hoping that they will also realise that the time constraint is a big aspect, and they may come with aspirations that are a bit harder than what's possible to achieve in 90 minutes or so. And I hope that by doing that and understanding how things come together and construction joints and how long things take, they'll get a better idea of what's achievable and what's not achievable.
You've got about 30 minutes left, so you might want to start thinking about putting it together because you haven't got very long.
I'm hoping that the class is pretty dedicated to the design aspect, but if they weren't, then I think I would have probably discussed with the teacher. If I felt like I was struggling, then I would call upon the teacher and say, look, I think this person has sort of walked away from the task a little bit, or got bored, or isn't quite as enthusiastic as the others, and hopefully get the teacher to tackle it.
They've got 15 minutes left. Things are starting to come together, which is really good. We'll see. I think some of them will finish, some of them might not quite finish. But there are some interesting thoughts, and the way they're thinking about things is really good. I think they're learning a hell of a lot from it.
Once you're finished, pop your furniture in the middle here and we'll have a little display of all the finished pieces.
In terms of generating the next idea, I think it will probably depend a lot on what school it is, what age group it is, what I can give to it in terms of time, but a lot of it also what type of lesson it is. If it was a science-based lesson, then I might consider things a little bit more on a sort of structural, physical level of architecture. This being a design and technology lesson, it was quite nice to be able to do a design aspect. I think it's catered for each case.
Guys, do you want to just gather around your bits of furniture? The thing I really like about this, that it's short, it's really well used of a small amount of materials in a really good time, and it looks like a really nice finished product.
If you're approaching your first DEMNet, the biggest bit of advice I'd say, don't be naive and think the school is going to be how it was when you left school, because it won't be. Schools have changed, protocols have changed, and what you might have expected to be normal doesn't necessarily happen.
This one, it works great in the fact that they've used different shapes, put them together, and you've actually created quite a nice little coffee table.
Timings of an activity is important, so maybe just a rough trial run before setting an activity, just so we don't end up rushing things at the end, and maybe the students will produce something a bit more finished with a bit more time. And then also where the skills are going to fit in with the curriculum. If it's something that's not related, then the kids can get bored and think, well, why are we doing this? Whereas, you know, this activity, for example, related directly to something they're doing in one of their coursework units, and they saw it as a valuable experience, they put more effort into it, and they can see the end result and think, wow, yeah, I understand that a bit more now.
In terms of functionality, this is probably the most functional, and you can get more people on the bench, so you're accommodating more from the waste. I think I've got to award the prize to this team over here. Well done.
So for my first STEMnet activity, I could just sigh of relief. I was a little bit apprehensive to start with as to whether they'd be able to achieve something in that period of time, and I think they've proven that they can. The value of bringing STEMnet ambassadors into schools for the students, I think, is quite exciting for them, because they've obviously got a professional take on how we might think about things in the real world, and the students get an idea of recycling, sustainability, structural things, how things are put together, and it's kind of brands a lot of different thought processes into one very short lesson, and I think the kids remember that as something to take away.
You could use scrap materials to make anything you want. Like, we hardly used anything that was new apart from the legs. Yeah. And then the thing that you gave us, we just split it in half and then took the bad bits away and then took the nails out. We used some new nails and then we turned it into that.
I was quite surprised by their designs, because they all did very different things. I mean, their base starting point was a pallet, and they managed to achieve very different looking bits of furniture from the same thing, which was great.